Hi, and welcome to my design blueprint. I'm going to share the 4 strategies of my blueprint and show you how I plan on incorporating those strategies. Let's begin with the non-academic skills assessment, my first strategy, depicted on the right-hand side as a blueprint, and it's actually a foundation blueprint because I think that this is a foundational strategy that students can be presented with early in the term that really helps set the stage for a compelling and engaging online experience for them. So for this skills assessment, I recommend a general skills assessment and a course-specific skills assessment, and I'll get into those options in the following slides. What's important to note here is that I do offer a bit of choice and flexibility among my strategies because when I was doing the learner persona for instructors, I realized that instructors have a wide threshold of technology skills or a wide range of technology skills. So I wanted to provide options for them to incorporate these strategies into their own courses. And the second reason is that academic freedom and choice and autonomy is really prized by instructors. So I wanted to offer different solutions within my strategies for them. So let's take a look at the general skills assessment. I believe this can be built right within the LMS as a test where there's different branching options for students based on their answers to the overall criteria questions. It can also be built in Rise or Google Forms. At this point, I'm leaning towards Google Forms, and I'll explain why in the following slide. And I'm leaning away from Rise because although it's a great platform, it's really sleek and intuitive. Not all instructors have access to the platform, so they can't make changes. And it would be a lot to maintain for the e-learning department and other various support departments that are involved in this project. And so my idea is to use Google Forms to create this general skills assessment for a template that instructors can use in their own courses. So they'll be given common criteria that are often an important part of an online learning experience, and then instructors can tweak or delete what doesn't work for them and make it their own within their course context. So in this general skills assessment, students would be presented with Likert scale questions, probably 5 to 10, in which students rate their confidence, high or low, towards those different skill criteria. So if they answered that they were high confidence, they would get some feedback and nudges in the right direction. Medium, they would be presented with different resources and ideas, potentially with some apps as well that can help them manage the term ahead. And then if they answered that they were low confidence, then not only would they be presented with resources, but also additional supports, because that's a common thing for online students is that they don't know which supports are available to them. And then students would be provided with an overall summary of their results that they could refer to throughout the term and reflect on. So the second option is a course-specific skills assessment, and I recommend building in Google Forms because 1, the interface is really great, it's really intuitive. 2, instructors can create a copy of this and tweak as they need. And 3, it provides a lot of data on the student experience. You can see which students answered certain questions. There's really nice breakdowns with pie charts. And so I think that instructors can do a lot with this simple Google Form setup. And so as you'll see on the form on screen, students are introduced to the skill assessment, they provide their email address, and then they have the first skill question in which there's different ratings that they can give. So if students answer that they're not at all confident, then this is what is presented below. So it's a branching style Google Forms, and I used the template from Alice Keeler, not the content, but the template itself. So then once students, rate their confidence level, they get the next steps, then what happens is that students are given an email, and this is depicted on the right-hand side, that shows all of their choices and the options that were presented based on their choices. So they can refer to this in their email at any time, making it really easy for instructors to integrate this into their courses. My second strategy is to have resource touch points that instructors provide for students throughout the term. So oftentimes what instructors will do is they'll just backlog their course with a bunch of resources. And so it can be a lot for students to wade through the different resources when they need it, when it's going to be helpful for them. So in this second step, now that we've built the foundation, we're building the walls. We're building the context to frame these skills in the context of the course. And these resource touchpoints can be course specific, and they can either be staff or student created. And the cool thing about having students create these resource touchpoints is that you're creating a peer-to-peer learning community and sharing resources and building knowledge of these strategies right within the course. Of course, staff can create, and by staff I mean instructors, can create these resource touchpoints for sure, but I think there's an interesting opportunity for students to create them as well. So using the mockup tool, I created this wireframe or journey of what a resource touchpoint could look like for a particular student. So in this student's case, she's embarking on her learning path. She expects that this is going to be a pretty seamless experience. It's going to be informative, and it's going to be curated and personal. So she's going to get resources that align with what she needs. So it's an opportunity to push specific resources to students and to connect students with their peers. So at the beginning of this course, and with the skills assessment, she's going to start to identify different types of support necessary. And at this point, she might think, I don't know much about this. I'm kind of struggling with this. And then when she's presented with the different ways that she can learn something, she can decide between different choices. So if an instructor is creating an assignment and embedded within the assignment, the first step is different resources on time management, but different approaches to time management that prioritize different ways of learning, then the learner has the opportunity to say, this seems interesting. I know less than I maybe thought that I did. And if it's embedded right into the assignment itself, then you're creating a really flexible learning path for that students where the skills are prioritized within that course context. And then the student would synthesize that information and apply it to their learning context. So they might wonder if, it's a good strategy for me. Maybe I need to pivot. She might be struggling to apply it or to keep it up. And that's where it can be helpful to have students reflect on their strategies and apply that inside an assignment. So as a journal prompt or a discussion or something like that. I also have seen it done really well where a live session will begin with the different skills that students are learning. And it's just like a 5-minute icebreaker at the beginning of the live session in which students share strategies and struggles. So at this point, students are starting to think, I'm starting to get this. So using the data from previous semesters of when we know students are starting to reach out for different types of supports, we can guide instructors to share these resource touchpoints at different times throughout the term. And to create resource touchpoints, there's lots of different ways of thinking about this, but the one that I like is a job aid. Of course, we can just provide a simple list to students, like a bulleted list of different resources, and that's totally fine. But what I like about creating a simple job aid or having students create it is that they lend themselves really well to the 5 moments of need. And as you'll see here on the right-hand side, a job aid is really well suited for not only training purposes, but also the job aid itself. So it's something that can be incorporated as students are training or learning something, and then later when they reflect and refresh their memory on what they learned, and if they need to tweak and pivot as they move throughout the term, because skills will develop as the term goes on. So again, there's lots of different ways of presenting resources and specifically touch points. But the one thing that I like about this job aid is on the left-hand side, students are presented with maybe the top skills in the class. They're prompted to pick a specific resource from each skill area, and then that's woven into a particular course activity, in this case, discussion prompts. And then as you'll see below, for academic writing, they're given some context on why the skill is important, and then they're given choice, a touch point, a nudge on particular resources that are going to aid them with that particular assignment or activity. And then on the right-hand side is another way of providing sort of a general touch point where they're just focusing on one skill. In this case, it's critical thinking. They're starting to think about it in the context of the psychology course. They're watching a short video, and then they're presented with 10 different strategies, and then they can pick one to incorporate into the course itself. So that's one way of thinking about the resource touch points that I think would be well suited for instructors' different skill levels. My third strategy here is professional development for instructors. And you'll see on the right-hand side that we've got the foundation, we've got the walls, and now we're starting to put stuff into the different rooms because we need to guide instructors through that. We need to provide that specific context in which they can apply these ideas in the context of their course. Otherwise, the resources that we produce will be basically meaningless. They won't really be used by students, and they won't be used by instructors because they won't know what to do with them, really. So I suggest, for professional development purposes, designing workshops, articles, and resources on my particular strategies that I'm pitching today. So when thinking about professional development for instructors, some of the workshops that came to mind that I think would be really useful are how to read digital body language, how to integrate a skills assessment into your online course, supporting non-academic skill development in your course. So not only are we nudging students in the right direction, we're also nudging instructors through a staggered approach, because we would offer these workshops and the recordings at various stages in the semester. And what's great about the university that I work for is that there's a strong marketing team and there's a weekly newsletter that goes out. So it's a great touch point for instructors to know what's happening during the term, and they can prepare for these different strategies. This professional development also lends itself really well to the 5 different moments of need. So when we think about it and break it down, starting with the first one, when instructors, this is helpful for instructors to think about their own moments of need, but specifically I designed this with teaching instructors to recognize the moments of need in their students, and this would help frame the professional development resources that we create for them. So getting instructors to think about, from the student's perspective, when they're learning something new for the first time, that's when they'll need resources, that self-assessment that we talked about, discussion opportunities where they can share their different ideas. Then the second step would be gaining more knowledge on what was learned, where they start to prepare for different assignments. There's maybe a general FAQ where students can ask and answer questions. The icebreaker activity that I spoke about in a previous slide, where students can share the particular skills that they're developing in the course. Third step is applying knowledge on the job. So that's where students need a really clear connection of the skills to the particular assignments. And to scaffold the assignments and to break them down is even better, because then students can apply those specific skills in a manageable way and get feedback on their progress. Fourth step is troubleshooting when something goes wrong. So that's when students not only need feedback, but a feedback debrief, perhaps smaller assignments that they're working on, and the job aids that they can come back to again and again. So it's not just a one and done type of deal, but it's a staggered, intentional approach throughout the whole term. And then finally, the fifth moment of need, adjusting and adapting when faced with changes. So this is a great opportunity for incorporating self-reflection into the assignments, perhaps weaving the skills throughout the whole course into a capstone project that students can then apply all of the skills that they've developed. So there's lots of great ideas here to support the strategies. And another thing I want to mention too is that there's lots of different apps and technology that we could use to teach instructors how to provide the different touch points and to reach students with where they're at throughout the term. There's a really great app called the Remind app where students can sign up and receive text messages from the instructor. And it doesn't show the instructor's number or anything like that, but the instructor can leave messages for the students throughout the term based on the skills assessment. So the instructor can send specific messages to a specific cohort of students based on their answers for the skill assessment and the resources that they might need throughout the term. My fourth strategy is, now we got the foundation, the walls, everything's coming together, then we kind of are starting to see the whole kind of house come together. And this is really important because a house implies a certain organization system. People know that to enter, they have to go through the front door. And a big problem at the university right now is that there isn't a centralized resource bank. People don't know how to access the information. So even though the foundation might be there, they don't really know where they're needing to go. And so I suggest having a student channel, video channel that's specifically for students where they can share content, they can give feedback, close that feedback loop to the designers, and it's just an easy access point for skill development throughout the term. So the current channel you'll see here on the left-hand side, the first 3 channels within this main channel are all for students, and then the following channels are all for faculty. So the resource bank is both for students and faculty, but we never share this whole channel with students because they don't have access. So they're sort of working in isolation, and they can't refer easily to these resources when they want to. So I suggest just creating a specific video channel for students in which they can provide feedback, and we can use the data to understand their digital body language and see if we're missing or hitting the mark. So these are my 4 strategies for improving the overall online learning experience. And I do think that through these various ways, we'll be covering a lot of ground and really thinking about both users' experiences, the students and the instructors, to create a better online experience for everyone. So thank you so much for watching.